The Great Pyramid's perfect alignment defies simple explanation. We are about to decode the 25 most complex structural codes secretly embedded within ancient designs, a hidden language of architecture that will permanently reshape your view of history. You will discover how principles of sacred geometry and advanced mathematics were used to build structures that have stood for thousands of years. Why would ancient builders conceal such sophisticated knowledge in stone? What forgotten secrets are we finally learning to read? This journey uncovers a lost science connecting our world to an incredibly advanced past. What does true architectural genius look like to you? These structures were far more than monuments to power or tombs for the dead. They were conceived as living libraries, their very forms a language written in geometry and stone. Ancient master builders did not work from simple plans. They operated from a profound and unified worldview. Every measurement they took, every angle they set, and every material they selected was infused with layers of meaning. This was a sacred science, a way of encoding their deepest understanding of the cosmos directly into the physical world. From the soaring pyramids of Giza to the step temples of Mesoamerica, a shared thread of knowledge connected civilizations across the globe. They were not just building structures, they were attempting to harmonize the earth with the heavens. Their architecture became a permanent record, a durable text that communicated principles of mathematics, mirrored the movements of stars, and expressed their relationship with the divine. This is the genesis of encoded architecture, the foundational context that transforms a pile of stones into a profound message. To see these buildings as merely functional is to miss their true purpose. They are the ultimate synthesis where art, science, and belief fuse into a single, enduring creation. This hidden language is what we are just beginning to relearn, a code that reveals a lost science of staggering sophistication. Centuries before Pythagoras gave the theorem its name, the Great Pyramid of Giza was its ultimate physical expression. The relationship between its base and its height is a geometric marvel. If you take the pyramid's base perimeter and divide it by twice its original height, the result is a number incredibly close to pi, the fundamental constant of a circle. This is not a vague approximation. It is a deliberate and sophisticated encoding. The very angles of the pyramid's faces form perfect 3-4-5 triangles, the most basic and powerful example of the Pythagorean relationship in action. This was a calculated design, a choice made with profound understanding. We are not looking at a lucky accident, but at a stone textbook of advanced mathematics. How could such a complex principle be implemented on such a colossal scale, with blocks weighing tons, and without the precision tools we rely on today? The pyramid's existence forces us to confront a staggering idea. This mathematical mastery hints at a scientific tradition far more advanced and much older than our recorded history admits. It suggests a lineage of knowledge, a school of thought that understood the fabric of geometry and embedded it into the world's most famous structure. This is our first code, a silent, enduring argument against the simple, linear progression of human knowledge. This mathematical precision was not confined to the pyramids of Egypt. Across the Mediterranean, another civilization was encoding a different, yet equally profound mathematical secret into its most iconic structure. The Parthenon stands on the Athenian Acropolis, a monument to the goddess Athena and a breathtaking example of architectural harmony. Its perfection is no accident of aesthetics. The facade of the Parthenon is a masterclass in the application of the golden ratio. This special number, approximately 1.618, appears again and again. You can see it in the relationship between the building's overall width and its height. You find it governing the precise spacing between its majestic columns. It even dictates the proportions within the sculptural scenes of its triangular pediments. This was the deliberate work of the architect Phidias, who so revered this proportion that its mathematical symbol, phi, is taken from his name. He was not merely building a temple, he was weaving a universal principle of beauty directly into the marble. The golden ratio is found throughout nature in the spiral of a nautilus shell and the arrangement of sunflower seeds. By embedding it into the Parthenon, Phidias was creating a resonance between human creation and the natural order. This was beauty as a precise science, a calculated effort to produce a structure that felt inherently and universally right to the human spirit. To stand before the Parthenon is to feel this harmony, a silent, powerful communication from the past that speaks of a deep, almost instinctual understanding of the world's hidden patterns. This second code shows us that ancient architects were not just engineers, they were philosophers of form, using stone to explore the very essence of visual perfection. But this mathematical and geometric genius was not limited to the world of sight and form. Deep beneath the island of Malta lies a sanctuary where architecture and sound become one. The hypogeum of Hal Saflieni is a labyrinthine complex carved entirely from solid limestone, a subterranean world where the very walls seem to listen. Within its mysterious chambers, something extraordinary happens. The space is not merely a container for sound, it is an active participant. Specific rooms and oddly shaped niches are engineered to amplify particular frequencies. The most powerful of these is a deep hum at 110 Hz. When this tone is produced, it does not just fill the air, it fills your entire being. The sound waves resonate through the stone and through your bones, creating a physical vibration that is impossible to ignore. Modern research into this frequency suggests it can directly influence our brain activity, shifting patterns toward states of deep calm, heightened focus, or even a trance-like awareness. This was no accident of excavation. The builders of the hypogeum carved this underground temple with an advanced knowledge of sonic vibration. They understood how to use the density and texture of the limestone to shape sound waves, turning the entire structure into a massive, resonant instrument. This was architecture not just for the eyes, but for the body and the mind. Imagine the rituals that might have taken place here, where chant or song was used not just for ceremony, but as a tangible tool to alter consciousness, to heal, or to connect with something beyond the everyday. This third code, the acoustic code, reveals a forgotten science. It shows us that ancient builders saw sound as a fundamental force, one that could be harnessed through stone to touch the human spirit. They encoded a principle that we are only now rediscovering, that vibration is not just something we hear, but something we feel, something that can change us from the inside out. Moving from the resonant chambers of Malta to the open plains of England, we find a code written not in sound, but in light and shadow. The great sarsen stones of Stonehenge stand as silent sentinels, a ring of giants that captures the cosmos itself. This was far more than a ritual space. It was a sophisticated astronomical machine engineered from multi-ton blocks of rock. Each placement, each alignment, was a deliberate act of celestial encoding. The most famous of these is the heel stone, which stands apart from the main circle. On the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, the sun rises directly over this stone, casting its first rays into the very heart of the monument. But the builder's vision extended far beyond the sun. The entire arrangement tracks the complex, 18.6-year cycle of the moon, marking its most extreme rising and setting points with stunning accuracy. This was a monumental calendar, a prediction engine built to synchronize human life with the rhythms of the heavens. Imagine the necessity that drove this project. These blue stones were transported over 200 miles, and the larger sarcens were dragged from quarries 17 miles away. This was not a casual undertaking. It was a society-wide effort, a project that must have consumed generations. The celestial code embedded here governed everything. It told them when to plant and when to harvest. It dictated the timing of religious ceremonies and solidified social order. The ability to predict an eclipse or mark the solstice was a form of power, a demonstration of a deep, sacred connection to the universe. This fourth code reveals a people who saw the sky not as a distant mystery, but as a readable, predictable map. They built a permanent interface with the cosmos, achieving a level of precision that humbles us even today, all without metal tools, without the wheel, and without a written language. Their knowledge was written in the landscape itself, a durable testament to human observation and our enduring need to find our place in the grand celestial dance. High in the Andes, a different kind of code was being written into the mountains themselves. The Inca builders of Machu Picchu and the fortress of Sacsayhuaman faced a constant and violent threat, the relentless earthquakes that shake the very foundations of the earth. Their solution was not to fight this force, but to work with it, and the evidence is locked in their impossible stonework. Look closely at these walls. They are a masterwork of polygonal masonry, a complex jigsaw puzzle carved from granite. Each stone is a unique shape, with multiple sides and angles that interlock perfectly with its neighbors. There are no straight lines, no simple rectangles. This was a deliberate and brilliant choice. When an earthquake strikes, the energy has to go somewhere. In a rigid wall held together by mortar, that energy creates cracks and leads to collapse. But in an Inca wall, the complex joints allow the entire structure to dance. The stones shift, they slide minutely against one another, they settle, and then, when the shaking stops, they lock back into place. This technique, what modern engineers call a seismic construction, is a code for survival written in stone. The Incas used no mortar at all. Their reliance was on perfect geometry and an intuitive understanding of dynamics. They were dissipating energy, allowing the wall to move as a single, flexible unit instead of a brittle monolith. This was not theoretical knowledge from a textbook. It was hard-won, practical wisdom gained through generations of observing how the land moved. They encoded this deep empirical understanding directly into the fabric of their most sacred cities, building resilience into every single wall. How many lives and how many failed structures did it take to learn this principle? Their legacy is a testament to a civilization that learned to listen to the earth and then built a language of stone that could answer back. From the resilient, dancing walls of the Incas, we journey to the soaring spires of India, where a different kind of structural code governs the very rhythm of ascent. Look up at the shikara of a temple in Khajuraho, and you are not just seeing a tower, you are witnessing mathematics in motion. The entire form is built upon the Fibonacci sequence, a pattern where every number is the sum of the two that came before it. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and on into infinity. This is not a hidden code, but a visible one, expressed in the progressive size and perfect arrangement of the countless miniature architectural elements that cascade up the spire. Each level, each repeating form, is slightly larger than the last, following this precise, unfolding progression. The effect is a visual rhythm that pulls your gaze irresistibly toward the heavens. But why would builders encode this specific sequence into their most sacred structures? The answer lies in the world around us. This very same pattern dictates the spiral of a galaxy, the arrangement of petals on a flower, and the curve of a crashing wave. By building the Fibonacci sequence into the temple, the architects were making a profound statement. They were connecting the man-made to the cosmic, declaring that the same laws that govern the unfolding of a fern also govern the unfolding of the soul. The temple becomes a living model of the universe, a microcosm where the mathematical principle of creation is made visible. This sixth code transforms architecture from a static object into a dynamic process, a symbol of eternal growth emerging from a single, unified source. It is a silent sermon written in stone, teaching that order and beauty are one and the same, and that both are woven into the fabric of everything that exists. The mathematical harmony of a temple spire finds its counterpoint in the harsh realities of the desert. While some cultures encoded cosmic patterns, others embedded a more immediate and vital knowledge, the science of survival. The Nabatean city of Petra, carved from rose-red cliffs, stands as a monument to this practical genius. In a landscape defined by scarcity, where water was more precious than gold, they engineered a miracle. Theirs was a hydraulic code, a deep, embedded understanding of how to command the very element that could destroy them. The desert does not give its water gently. It arrives in sudden, violent bursts, flash floods that can tear through a canyon with devastating force. The Nabateans did not simply try to withstand these deluges. They harnessed them. They mapped the entire watershed surrounding their city, reading the landscape like a blueprint. Then they cut a complex network of channels and dams directly into the rock, a system designed not just to carry water but to think for it. They constructed diversion tunnels that could be opened or closed with sluice gates, actively manipulating the flow during a storm. This was real-time water management on a massive scale. But their foresight went deeper. They understood that floodwater carries immense amounts of silt and debris, so they designed settling tanks and cisterns, clever chambers where the water would slow, allowing the sediment to drop out before the clean water was channeled into vast underground reservoirs. This was not just plumbing. This was a sophisticated, living system of hydrology and civil engineering. It turned a seasonal threat into a permanent, reliable water supply for tens of thousands of people, transforming a barren canyon into a thriving, green metropolis. This seventh code is a testament to innovation born of absolute necessity. It represents an ancient mastery over one of civilization's most fundamental challenges, proving that the greatest structural codes were not always about reaching for the stars, but about learning to listen to the earth and command the rain. That pursuit of perfect harmony required a masterful deception of the human eye. The architects of ancient Greece faced a peculiar challenge. When viewed from a distance, perfectly straight lines on a grand scale can appear to sag or bow, and parallel columns can seem to lean apart, creating a subtle but unsettling sense of instability. Their brilliant solution was not to build with rigid mathematical straightness, but to encode a series of deliberate imperfections. This practice is known as entasis. Look at the Parthenon, a structure we have already admired for its golden proportions. Its majestic columns are not straight shafts. They curve, swelling almost imperceptibly in the middle before tapering toward the top. Furthermore, these columns do not stand perfectly vertical. They all tilt inward just a few inches toward the center of the building. Even the massive platform on which they stand is not flat. It arches upward in a gentle curve. To the naked eye, the result is a breathtaking impression of absolute straightness, power, and balance. This was a psychological code embedded directly into the marble. The Greeks understood that architectural perfection was not a matter of pure geometry, but a negotiation with human perception. They were not just building for the gods, they were building for the people who would stand below and behold their work. Every subtle curve and calculated incline was a correction for an anticipated optical illusion. a preemptive strike against the flaws of our own vision. This eighth code reveals a layer of sophistication that moves beyond mathematics and into the realm of cognitive science. It proves that their genius was holistic. They engineered not only the structure, but the very experience of seeing it, ensuring that their ideal of beauty would be felt instantly and intuitively by every single person who gazed upon it. The precision of the human eye finds its ultimate calibration in the vast, open skies of the American Southwest. High on a canyon wall in New Mexico, a spiral petroglyph carved by the Anasazi people waits in silence for most of the year. But on the morning of the summer solstice, a brilliant dagger of sunlight pierces through a slit in the rock, striking the center of the spiral with perfect accuracy. This is not a random play of light and shadow. It is the ninth code, a solar calendar engraved directly into the landscape of Chaco Canyon. The Anasazi were master astronomers of the desert, and their entire world became a timekeeping device. They constructed massive, multi-story buildings, what we call great houses, with walls and windows aligned to capture the sun's rays at the solstices and equinoxes. On those pivotal days, beams of light would travel across rooms to mark specific points on the opposite wall, a silent, annual announcement of the changing seasons. This was a society that read time from the sun's position against the canyon rim. The coordination required for this is staggering. These alignments work over distances of many miles, connecting separate sites in a unified celestial network. It speaks of a shared, sacred knowledge that guided the entire community. This encoded calendar was the heartbeat of their civilization. It told them when the life-giving rains were likely to arrive, when to plant their crops in the arid soil, and when to hold the ceremonies that bound their society together. Their architecture did not simply exist in the landscape. It actively collaborated with it, turning sun and stone into a reliable, living clock. Why go to such extraordinary lengths to mark these celestial moments? Because their survival depended on it. In the harsh desert environment, missing the optimal planting window by even a few weeks could mean starvation. The solar code was a matter of life and death, a profound expression of a people who had learned to watch the sky not with abstract wonder, but with focused, practical necessity. They achieved a harmony with the cosmos that was both deeply spiritual and utterly essential, proving that the most advanced codes are often those that serve the most fundamental human needs. The desert solar calendar was a code of survival, but the principles that built an empire were codes of absolute dominion. Roman engineers transformed raw necessity into an art form, and their masterwork was the aqueduct. These were not mere water channels, they were the circulatory system of a civilization, and their design followed a rigorous, encoded philosophy. The architect Vitruvian laid it out with stunning clarity. 3 unbreakable laws for any great structure: fermitas, utilitas, venustas, durability, utility, and beauty. Look at the Pont du Gard in southern France, a colossal 3-tiered bridge carrying water across a river valley. Its strength is immediately apparent in the massive, perfectly fitted stones and the relentless repetition of the Roman arch, a form that distributes weight with ruthless efficiency. But the code goes deeper. The arches are not all the same size, they are graduated, larger on the bottom tier to bear the immense load and smaller on the upper levels, a calculated hierarchy of support. The utility is found in the channel at the very top, which maintains a precise, gentle gradient, falling only 1 foot for every 3,000 feet of length. This minuscule slope was enough to keep the water moving steadily for 30 miles without eroding the stone conduit. And then there is the beauty, the venustas. The structure is symmetrical and rhythmical, It's golden limestone blocks cut from local quarries, so it appears to rise naturally from the landscape itself. The Romans understood that a thing built to last must also be a thing worth preserving. This 10th code was a holistic blueprint, a mandate that engineering, purpose, and art were inseparable. The fact that these aqueducts still stand after 2,000 years is not an accident. It is the direct result of this encoded philosophy, a principle so powerful it became the bedrock of an empire's infrastructure and echoes through Western architecture to this day. They built not for their own time, but for a future they would never see, proving that true structural genius lies in the perfect, unshakable balance between what works, what lasts, and what inspires. Deep within the Great Pyramid, the so-called King's Chamber holds a secret that moves beyond geometry and into the invisible world of energy. This chamber is not built from uniform stone. Its walls are composed of immense granite blocks, a material rich with quartz crystals, while the rest of the pyramid is primarily limestone. This is a critical distinction because granite is a semiconductor, capable of conducting subtle electrical currents in a way that limestone is not. The entire chamber acts like a giant, purpose-built resonance cavity. When the Earth's own weak, natural electromagnetic fields pass through this space, the theory suggests the granite could amplify them, concentrating the energy in a specific way. The empty granite sarcophagus at the room's center might not have been a container for a body at all, but a focal point for this intensified field. Imagine standing in that space, surrounded by tons of vibrating crystalline rock, the very air humming with a power you could feel in your bones. Could this have been the engine of an oracle? Proponents of this idea suggest that such a carefully engineered environment could alter human brainwave patterns, facilitating states of heightened awareness or trance. This 11th code proposes a lost physics, an architectural science that sought not just to defy gravity, but to harness the planet's own latent energy. It pushes us to consider whether the ancients saw the Earth as a living, pulsing entity, and their greatest structures as devices to tap into its rhythm. What if the pyramid's ultimate purpose was to serve as a spiritual power plant, a machine designed not for the physical world, but for the expansion of human consciousness itself? That same impulse to harmonize with cosmic energy finds its ultimate expression not in a machine, but in a map. The 12th code transforms a spiritual diagram into a walkable universe. In the traditions of Buddhism and Hinduism, the mandala is far more than a beautiful drawing. It is a sacred blueprint, a detailed geometric representation of the cosmos, and it served as the literal architectural plan for some of the world's most breathtaking structures. Consider the massive temple of Borobudur in Indonesia, rising from the jungle like a stepped mountain. From above, its form is a perfect mandala, a series of concentric squares and circles. But this is not a design to be seen from the sky. It is a path to be walked with your own feet. Every single element is encoded with meaning. The broad, square terraces at the base represent the world of desire. As you ascend, moving through increasingly refined galleries, you pass by over 2,000 intricate relief panels and more than 500 statues of the Buddha. This is the world of form. Finally, you reach the circular terraces at the summit, dotted with bell-shaped stupas, each containing a Buddha figure visible through the latticework. This is the formless world, the realm of pure enlightenment. Your physical ascent mirrors a spiritual one. You are not a tourist, you are a pilgrim navigating a three-dimensional map of Buddhist philosophy. The entire journey is a guided meditation in stone where the architecture itself teaches the path to awakening. This is the genius of the Mandala Code. It fuses the most abstract philosophical concepts with the most tangible physical experience. The builders of Borobudur did not just want you to learn about enlightenment. they built a structure that allows you to literally walk through its stages. It is a perfect synthesis of profound symbolic meaning and flawless geometric execution, proving that the most powerful structural codes are those that guide not just the body but the soul. Could a field of silent, standing stones actually be a book? This is the provocative idea behind the 13th code, a theory that connects the ancient Ogham script of the Celts to the far older megalithic arrangements of the British Isles. At sites like the Callanish stones on the Isle of Lewis, the stones do not form a simple circle. They stretch out in arms like a Celtic cross, with a central monolith and rows of pillars reaching toward the cardinal directions. Some researchers see in this a direct parallel to Ogham, an alphabet where letters are formed by a series of notches or strokes along a central line. In this landscape Aztec theory, the central alignment of stones becomes that primary line. The individual stones, with their varying heights and positions, act as the notches. Their specific placement, their angle in relation to a distant mountain, or their alignment with a particular star rising on the horizon, could each encode a piece of information. This was not a written language as we know it, but a three-dimensional recording system. A taller stone might signify a chieftain, its position marking a lineage. A sightline to a specific lunar extreme could record a celestial event. The entire complex becomes a permanent record of genealogy, territorial claims, and astronomical knowledge, etched not on fragile vellum, but into the very bones of the landscape. For a pre-literate society, this was a durable way to store essential cultural memory. The knowledge of how to read this stone code would have been the exclusive domain of the learned classes, the druids or elders, turning the landscape into a sacred text that only the initiated could decipher. This idea transforms our understanding of these sites from passive ritual spaces into active libraries. You were meant to walk among these stones, to see one pillar framed against another, to observe how the low winter sun cast a long shadow that touched a specific outlier. The information was not held in any single rock, but in the relationship between them all. It was a code you experienced with your body, a monumental language waiting for thousands of years for someone to learn its grammar once again. 14th on our list is a material that seems to defy the very passage of time. While Roman arches and aqueducts are marvels of form, their true, hidden genius lies in the very stuff they were made from. Modern concrete, for all its strength, begins to degrade after a few decades, especially in harsh environments like the sea. But travel to the ancient harbor of Caesarea, where breakwaters of Roman concrete have been submerged in the Mediterranean for 2,000 years. They are not just surviving, they are thriving, growing stronger with each passing century. The code was not in the design, but in the recipe itself, a lost chemical formula of staggering sophistication. The Romans mixed their concrete with a special ingredient, a volcanic ash called pozzolana, combined with lime and seawater. This was not just a simple binder. When these components met, they initiated a long-term chemical conversation with the ocean. Seawater, which is so destructive to our modern Portland cement, actually became the catalyst for a remarkable transformation within the Roman mix. It percolated through the concrete, slowly dissolving the volcanic ash and lime. This allowed rare, interlocking minerals, like a crystalline structure called aluminum tobamorite, to grow and weave themselves throughout the material. Think of it not as a static block, but as a living matrix. These minerals act like a microscopic reinforcement bar, a self-healing network that actually blocks the path of tiny cracks. When a stress fracture begins to form, it encounters this resilient, interlocking crystal lattice and simply cannot propagate. The concrete fights back against its own destruction. Modern scientists have only recently unraveled this process in laboratories, using advanced electron microscopes to see the secret life inside the Roman mix. For centuries, we viewed this ancient concrete as a primitive predecessor to our own. Now we understand the truth. The Romans possessed an empirical, deeply encoded knowledge of material science that we are only just beginning to replicate. They were not just builders, they were master chemists who engineered a material with a built-in future, a stone that learns from the elements and grows stronger against them. This 14th code challenges our entire notion of progress. What does it mean that a 2,000-year-old recipe outperforms our best modern technology? It suggests a different kind of knowledge, one gained not from abstract equations, but from centuries of patient observation and a profound partnership with the natural world. 15th on our list elevates stone into a form of silent prayer. The Gothic cathedral is a symphony of light and verticality, but its true foundation is a hidden language of numbers. At Chartres, every measurement whispers a sacred code. The number 3, representing the Holy Trinity, is woven throughout the structure, from the triple division of the facade to the 3 levels of the nave arcade. The number 12, for the 12 apostles, dictates the layout of the surrounding chapels. Even the labyrinth embedded in the floor is not a mere decoration. It is a geometric pilgrimage path whose turns and circuits are calculated with theological precision. This was far more than structural engineering. It was mathematics as a form of worship. The architects were not just building a church, they were constructing a vision of the heavenly Jerusalem, a perfect, ordered city of God brought down to earth. The ratios governing the height of the spires and the width of the nave were not arbitrary. They were a deliberate attempt to mirror the divine harmony they believed governed the cosmos. To walk through the soaring space of Chartres is to be surrounded by a 3-dimensional sermon, a physical manifestation of faith where the very stones preach. The light streaming through the stained glass, illuminating biblical stories, was filtered through a framework of sacred number, bathing the congregation in a glow that was both literal and deeply symbolic. This 15th code reveals a world where science and spirit were not separate, but inseparable. The cathedral was the ultimate expression of this unity, a bridge between earth and heaven built not with faith alone, but with the immutable, sacred language of mathematics. The sacred geometry of a cathedral points toward the heavens, but another kind of code was carved deep into the earth, a testament to survival born of sheer necessity. In the rocky heart of Turkey, the Derinkuyu underground city descends 18 levels into the volcanic tuff, a labyrinthine refuge that could shelter up to 20,000 people. To exist at such depths for months on end, the architects had to solve one of engineering's most vital puzzles, the need for breathable air. Their solution was a masterpiece of subterranean design, a ventilation system of over 50 meticulously engineered shafts that reached from the deepest chambers all the way to the surface. This was the 16th code, a life-sustaining network etched into the living rock. These shafts were not random holes. They were strategically positioned to harness the natural principles of airflow, exploiting the subtle temperature differences between the cool underground caverns and the warmer surface air. As the heavier, cooler air inside the city sank, it created a vacuum that actively drew the fresh surface air downward through the intake shafts, while separate, narrower channels allowed the warm, stale air, rich with carbon dioxide, to rise and escape. This created a passive, self-regulating circulation system, a constant, invisible river of air flowing through the mountain. The builders possessed an intuitive, yet profound, understanding of aerodynamics and geology, reading the stone itself to know where to carve for maximum effect. They even equipped the shafts with massive, rolling stone doors that could be sealed from the inside in case of attack, without completely suffocating the inhabitants. This was not just architecture, it was environmental engineering on a grand scale. It represents a civilization's encoded knowledge for enduring existential threats, a blueprint for life hidden in plain sight, proving that the most brilliant structural codes are those that quite simply allow people to breathe. The sun itself was a scheduled performer in the sacred drama of Karnak. In the great temple complex of ancient Egypt, the 17th code transformed architecture into a celestial timepiece. Every year at the dawn of the winter solstice, a breathtaking event unfolded. The rising sun would fire its first rays directly down the temple's main axis, a processional avenue lined with colossal statues and towering pillars. That beam of light would travel unerringly through a series of courtyards and hypostyle halls, finally reaching the darkest, most sacred chamber, the inner sanctuary. In that moment, the boundary between the human and the divine dissolved. This was no happy accident of orientation. The entire sprawling complex, built and modified by successive pharaohs for 2,000 years, adhered to this single, unshakable astronomical principle. Imagine the coordination required, the sheer will to maintain this precise alignment across centuries of construction. Each new pharaoh, adding his own pylon or hall, was bound by this celestial covenant. The alignment was a powerful symbolic code, reinforcing the pharaoh's divine mandate. He was not just a king, he was the son of the sun god Ra, the essential intermediary who ensured the sun would return from its darkest point and life would continue. The temple was his stage, and the solstice sunrise was the ultimate proof of his authority, a cosmic spotlight that validated his rule to the entire population. This was architecture in active conversation with the heavens, a permanent, physical link designed to replay this divine connection year after year, forever binding the fate of the kingdom to the reliable rhythm of the cosmos. This architectural genius for protection reached its zenith in the sun-scorched valleys of Egypt. The 18th code was a masterclass in security, transforming the tombs of pharaohs into intricate puzzles designed to outwit greed for eternity. Far beyond the legends of curses, the real magic lay in the stone itself. Architects employed a deep understanding of psychology and mechanics to guard the sacred journey to the afterlife. They designed entire networks of decoy corridors that led only to dead ends, wasting the time and resolve of any intruder. They concealed the true burial chamber behind false walls and hidden pivoting doors, seamlessly blended into the surrounding rock. But their most formidable innovation was the blocking stone. These were not mere boulders, they were colossal granite slabs, sometimes weighing over a ton, carefully shaped to fit a descending corridor perfectly. The true genius was in their placement. They were often set into grooves high up in a passageway, held in place by a temporary support of sand or clay. Once the funeral procession was complete and the tomb was sealed, workers would destabilize this support from a hidden side chamber. The massive stone would then slide down its grooves, crashing into place with finality, creating a permanent, unmovable barrier. The tomb of Tutankhamun, though small, benefited from a different kind of code, one of obscurity. Its entrance was buried deep beneath the chipped limestone debris from the later construction of Ramesses VI's tomb. This fortunate accident acted as the ultimate decoy, making the boy king's resting place invisible for over 3,000 years. These were not crude booby traps. They were sophisticated architectural feints, a calculated game of misdirection and brute force obstruction. The ancient builders embedded a dual knowledge into the bedrock, understanding both the physics of mass and the predictable patterns of a desperate human mind. Every false passage and every counterweighted stone was a silent question, a challenge to any who would disturb the eternal sleep of a god king. It proves that the protection of the soul's journey was planned with the same meticulous care as the journey itself, turning the very mountain into an active, intelligent guardian. While the Egyptians sealed their kings away from time itself, another civilization was building a machine to measure its every passing moment. In the ancient Syrian city of Ugarit, a remarkable device was unearthed, a clepsydra or water clock. This was not a portable timekeeper, but a permanent fixture of the city's architecture, embedded right into the council chamber. Imagine a large stone vessel carefully calibrated, where water would drip at a constant rate from a small inlet, marking the hours as the level inside slowly fell. This 19th code was the regulation of civic life through hydraulic engineering. The design was a feat of precision. The size of the water inlet and outlet holes, the shape of the container itself, all working in concert to create a reliable, standardized unit of time. Why would a society go to such lengths? This clock was likely used to time speeches in the city's assembly, ensuring every elder had an equal and fair hearing. It may have managed the shifts of guards or laborers, bringing a new order to the workday. This was more than a clock, it was an early form of bureaucratic coding. The architects of Ugarit had translated the abstract concept of time into a physical, architectural object, using the relentless flow of water to impose structure and fairness on the chaos of human interaction. It demonstrates a profound shift in thinking, where time itself became a communal resource to be managed, measured, and allocated, all through the silent, steady authority of a stone bowl and a trickle of water. The flow of time measured by water gives way to a structure where time itself seems to stand still. In the heart of Mecca, the Kaaba is perpetually veiled in black, a cube of profound stillness draped in a dynamic garment. The kiswa, its magnificent covering, is no simple cloth. This is a textile of immense spiritual weight, woven with a 20th code of symbolic proportions. Each year, a new kiswa is crafted to exacting specifications. Its dimensions and the intricate patterns of its gold and silver calligraphy governed by ancient geometric principles. The division of the cloth into its vast panels, the spacing of the sacred verses embroidered upon it, all follow a precise and inherited harmony. This is architecture in silk and thread, a code that ensures the visual and symbolic integrity of the holiest site in Islam remains constant, even as its physical veil is renewed. The act of replacement is itself a ritual of continuity, a promise that the divine harmony embedded in its form will never fade. This application of sacred geometry to a temporary, yet eternally renewed, object reveals a crucial truth. The code was not merely for the permanent and the monumental. It was a living principle, as vital to a woven textile as it was to a pyramid of stone. The kiswa demonstrates that the language of proportion transcends material, connecting the human act of craftsmanship directly to an unchanging celestial order. It is a reminder that the most enduring codes are those that are lovingly maintained, generation after generation, written not just in rock but in the very fabric of faith. 21 centuries before the Roman aqueduct, the Indus Valley civilization was perfecting the art of urban living. The city of Mohenjo-Daro stands as a testament to this, not for its towering monuments, but for its radical sense of order. This was a city built on a master grid, a perfect north-south, east-west orientation that divided the entire metropolis into uniform blocks. Every single brick, from the foundations of the Grand Citadel to the humblest house in the lower town, conformed to a single, standardized ratio. This was the 21st Code, a comprehensive urban planning language that governed every aspect of life. The true genius of this system, however, lay beneath the streets. A sophisticated network of baked clay pipes ran under every main avenue, connecting to drains in every home. This was not a haphazard system. It was a meticulously engineered sanitation network with manholes for access and cleaning, all designed to carry waste and rainwater away from the living spaces and into the river. Imagine the foresight this required, a society that prioritized public health on a city-wide scale over 1,000 years before the plumbing of ancient Rome. But the code went even deeper than hygiene. The uniform layout of the neighborhoods, the identical brick sizes, the shared wells placed at regular intervals, all point to a powerful, centralized authority. This was not a city that grew organically. It was a city that was thought into existence, a premeditated vision of social harmony and efficiency. The same planning template has been found in other Indus Valley cities like Harappa, suggesting a shared, codified knowledge that spanned a vast civilization. This was early zoning, an encoded system that managed everything from waste disposal to the flow of people and goods. It reveals a remarkably modern mind, one that understood that the structure of a city directly shapes the quality of life within it. In the silent, orderly streets of Mohenjo-Daro, we find a code not of kings and gods, but of collective well-being, a blueprint for a society that mastered the art of living together, thousands of years before such ideas became common in the rest of the world. The roar of the crowd and the thunderous impact of the rubber ball were not left to chance in the Mayan world. High stone walls rise on either side of the great ball court at Chichen Itza, enclosing a space longer than a modern football field. This was the stage for a sacred and often deadly game, but its design reveals a 20-second code, one written not in stone alone, but in the very air between the stones. The parallel walls act as perfect acoustic mirrors. A single whisper uttered at one end of the 500-foot-long court travels with impossible clarity to the other, arriving as if the speaker were standing right beside you. This was no architectural accident. It was a deliberate amplification system, an acoustic code engineered to elevate the entire spectacle. Every sound was magnified for dramatic and ceremonial effect. The hard smack of the solid rubber ball against a player's hip, the rhythmic stomping of feet on the stone court, the chants and invocations of the participants, all of it was captured and projected by the whispering gallery of the walls. This transformed the ball game into a fully immersive auditory experience, ensuring that even those farthest from the action felt its vibration in their bones. The Maya understood the physics of sound wave reflection with an intuitive mastery, using it to heighten the spiritual gravity of a ritual that could end in sacrifice. The court was not just a sporting arena, it was a resonant chamber where the fate of individuals and the favor of the gods hung in the balance, announced by a soundscape engineered for maximum emotional power. This code proves that their architectural genius extended into the invisible realm, manipulating the environment to command not just sight, but sound, and through sound, the human spirit itself. This theory turns the very substance of the pyramids into a chemical secret. The 23rd code proposes that the massive blocks were not always cut from a quarry, but were sometimes cast like modern concrete, an ancient form of geopolymer engineering. Instead of dragging every single multi-ton block into place, the builders might have used a sophisticated recipe. They would take the abundant limestone rubble found at the site, crush it into a powder, and mix it with a natural binder, a kind of reactive silica and alumina found in specific desert clays. When mixed with water, this slurry would undergo a chemical reaction, not just drying, but reorganizing its molecular structure to create a new, solid stone. This was not simple mortar. It was a process of reagglomeration, literally growing artificial limestone blocks that are chemically and physically almost identical to the natural stone. The evidence lies within the blocks themselves. Analysis has revealed the presence of unexplained organic fibers and air bubbles, features you would expect in a cast material, not in stone formed over millions of years. Some blocks show a texture and mineral composition that varies in ways that do not match known geological layers. If this theory holds, it completely rewrites the story of construction. It suggests the ancient Egyptians possessed a profound, encoded knowledge of chemistry. They were not just master stonecutters, they were alchemists of the earth with the secret formula to create stone on demand. This would explain the impossible precision of the joints, where the blocks fit together with a seam thinner than a credit card. Pouring a block directly onto its neighbor would achieve that perfection naturally. It would also explain how such a colossal structure was completed within a single pharaoh's lifetime. The logistics become simpler, shifting from an army of haulers to an army of chemists and mixers, working with locally sourced materials to cast the pyramid layer by layer. This is a code for creation, a lost science that allowed them to command the earth itself, transforming rubble into a monument for the ages. The stone itself becomes a language, and its message is one of a chemistry so advanced, we are only just beginning to understand its vocabulary. Stone projections jut from the battlements of a medieval castle, a permanent threat carved into the skyline. These are machicolations, the 24th code, and they transformed a static wall into a weapon. The design was a brutal geometry of survival. Supported by strong stone corbels, these overhanging galleries created a gap between the edge of the wall and the main structure below. For those inside the castle, this gap was a protected firing slit straight down. Defenders could stand safely on the stone floor, completely shielded from arrows shot from below, and yet they commanded a deadly vertical field of fire. Rocks, boiling water, or crude incendiary devices could be dropped with pinpoint accuracy onto the heads of anyone trying to scale the walls or batter the gate. This was not a random feature. It was a calculated architectural response to the grim realities of siege warfare, encoding a deep tactical knowledge directly into the castle's bones. The precise spacing of the openings was a balance between providing enough coverage to rain down destruction and maintaining the structural integrity of the corbels themselves. This code turned the very concept of defense on its head. A castle was no longer just a barrier to be overcome. With machicolations, the wall itself became an active participant in the battle, creating a three-dimensional killing zone where attackers at the base were suddenly the most vulnerable. Every projecting stone was a lesson learned from a previous siege, a permanent innovation that declared no wall would ever be passive again. It was a stark reminder that in an age of constant conflict, the most brilliant codes were those that ensured you could fight back from behind the safety of your own walls. A final and perhaps ultimate code transforms an entire landscape into a map of the heavens. The sprawling temple complex of Angkor Wat is more than a collection of beautiful buildings. It is a three-dimensional model of the Hindu cosmos, built to full walkable scale. At its heart, 5 majestic towers rise like mountain peaks. The central tower, the tallest, is Mount Meru, the mythical axis of the universe and the dwelling place of the gods. The surrounding 4 smaller towers represent the lesser peaks that anchor the cardinal directions. This sacred geography extends outward with breathtaking precision. The immense rectangular wall enclosing the complex is the chain of mountains that forms the edge of the world, and the vast 5-kilometer-long moat surrounding it all is nothing less than the cosmic ocean, the primordial waters from which all creation emerged. Every step a pilgrim takes across the stone causeways and through the ornate galleries is a step across this symbolic universe. The journey from the outer walls toward the central sanctuary is a spiritual ascent, a movement from the mundane world toward the divine center of all things. This was architecture as the ultimate act of world building, a code that did not just represent an idea but sought to physically contain it. the builders of Angkor Wat engineered a complete cosmological system in stone and water, blurring the line between a temple and a universe itself. It invites you to traverse the heavens on foot, to experience cosmology not as an abstract belief, but as a physical reality you can walk through, touch, and feel rising beneath your feet. This 25th code stands as a monumental testament to the human desire to find our place in the cosmos, not by looking up at the stars, but by building their reflection here on Earth, creating a sacred space where the human and the divine could finally meet on common ground. These 25 codes form a single, unified language spoken across the ages. From the pyramids to Petra, from Stonehenge to Angkor Wat, the same fundamental principles appear again and again. This was not a collection of isolated discoveries, but a coherent body of knowledge. Ancient master builders were encoding the universe itself into their work, capturing mathematical constants, celestial rhythms, and the physics of vibration and force. They saw no division between the scientist, the artist, and the priest. For them, these were all facets of a single, sacred pursuit, the quest to understand and embody the cosmic order. The sheer diversity of their achievements, from sonic resonance to self-healing concrete, points to a holistic worldview of staggering sophistication. A civilization that could chart the stars, command the flow of water, and manipulate the very chemistry of stone was not primitive. They were masters of an integrated science we have only just begun to piece back together. This grand synthesis of knowledge forces a profound question. If these principles were known so widely, from the deserts of Egypt to the jungles of Cambodia, what was their common source? Does this point to a long-lost root civilization, a golden age whose echoes reverberated for thousands of years? Or does it reveal something even more fundamental about humanity, a shared, intuitive grasp of the patterns that govern our world? The evidence is no longer hidden in plain sight, it is shouting from the stones. These structures are a permanent record of a lost science, a global conversation in the language of genius, waiting for us to finally learn how to listen. Our journey through these 25 codes reveals a past that is far more sophisticated and interconnected than our history books often suggest. These ancient builders were not primitive people stumbling toward civilization. They were master scientists, engineers, and artists operating from a unified world where the spiritual, the mathematical, and the physical were inseparable. They left a permanent record of this integrated genius in stone, in concrete, and in the very landscape itself. Their work stands as a silent but powerful challenge to our modern assumptions, urging us to look beyond the surface of history and reconsider the true capabilities of our ancestors. The real, lingering mystery is not how they built these wonders with the tools they had. The deeper question is why we ever forgot the profound, holistic knowledge they so clearly embodied. This exploration is merely a starting point for your own curiosity. What other architectural codes are waiting to be deciphered in the ruins of a forgotten city or the alignment of a standing stone? Share your thoughts with us. Tell us about the most fascinating ancient structure you have ever encountered in the comments below, and subscribe to continue unraveling the deepest mysteries of our past together.